If you've been subscribed to BTEKT for a while, you're probably thinking, who the hell is this guy and why is he on a roof? If you're not subscribed to BTEKT, you're probably thinking, who the hell is this guy and why is he on a roof? Well, I have a story to tell you, but in the meantime, here's the Sony Xperia 1 Mark II, and this is my first ever rooftop review here in the heart of Latin America. So here's the kind of backstory before we get into this amazing phone. I came to Latin America to start a business, and I got here, started recruiting just as COVID hit this beautiful, beautiful place. And I've been in lockdown ever since. The whole team is in isolation, and I think we've been in lockdown for about 130, maybe 135 days. I sort of lost count. We're not really allowed to do too much, which is why I'm on a roof. And if you're anywhere in the world that's been in lockdown and you've had a tough time, I'd love to hear about it. And tell me also if you've been in lockdown for longer than 130 days. I think this could be a record. Anyway, lockdown would have been absolutely unbearable if I didn't have this fantastic phone. And that's what I'm going to tell you about now. This is essentially my 1 month later review on the Sony Xperia 1 Mark II. Welcome to our first ever rooftop review. So I want to say thank you to Sony who've loaned me this phone. Everything I say is my opinion. We can't be bought. This is all very honest, genuine stuff. So look, this is a bit of a strange one to review because it's an incredibly expensive phone and it's a very unusual phone, but living with it has really thrown up some very pleasant surprises, which I don't feel have been addressed in some of the other reviews I've seen. So this is a longer term review. First of all, let's start off talking about this design because this is classic Sony. It's understated, it looks the business. It's unlike anything else because of the form factor. I really like the 21:9 form factor. It's grown on me enormously over the past month. But it is a strange one. For example, when it comes to taking pictures, we did put it up against, let me think, the HUAWEI P40 Pro, the iPhones, we put it up against the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra. In fact, that's going to be the next video. Make sure you're subbed for that. And if this whole thing about being on a rooftop doing reviews isn't the weirdest thing, and if it's not too weird, please do hit that like button. I'd really appreciate it. Anyway, back to the cameras. When we put it up against these other phones, we felt that in auto mode, we weren't quite getting absolutely incredible results. They were very, very close to being the best in the world, but not quite. But when we put it into the pro modes, whether it was video or photography, it really surprised us and became a lot of fun. And I think that's how I look at this phone. But anyway, what do I love about the design? Headphone jack. Now talk about courage. That for me is very courageous. I like the fact I don't need one of those SIM ejector tools every time I need to swap out the SIM. In terms of fingerprint magnet, this is the worst offending phone I think we have in the, I was going to say in the studio. We're not allowed in the studio. That's another reason why I'm up here. And I do have vertigo. Anyway, over on the front, we have a selfie camera, which we're going to get into in a little bit. It's not great. We also have an LED notification light. That is great, and I absolutely love it. I wish more phones had that. We've got this fantastic display, very, very good stereo speakers in terms of quality. They're not the loudest. They are loud enough, but certainly the S20 Ultra was louder, but these have a more refined sound to them, I feel. At the beginning of my time with the Xperia 1 Mark II, when I was watching movies, I loved it. When I switched back to YouTube videos, I wasn't really into it as much, of course, because of the letterboxing. But then I realized, actually, if you go full screen, 9 times out of 10, not only do you get away with it, but actually the width, that experience, it's just worth doing. So I wouldn't let this form factor put you off, even if you're way more into YouTube videos than you're into watching movies. So it's easily manageable because it's only 181 grams, despite the the big dimensions here. It's also very easy to use one-handed because, of course, one-handed mode is there and it's amazingly good. So too is side sense. And if any reviewer tells you that it doesn't work enough or it isn't any good, they didn't take the time to get into the settings, because if you do, you can dial this thing in perfectly. It works for me 100% of the time. So let's talk about this display. 4K, I mean, it is absolutely beautiful. Out here in Latin America, using the phone outside, I did find it could do with being a little bit brighter, but it was good enough to get me through, no problem. I mean, and let's be honest, it doesn't really get any brighter than this. And it's a beautiful display. The big thing with this phone is whether or not it would have been better to have the higher refresh rate, because of course this is down at 60, it's not up at the dusty end like some other phones. It doesn't worry me too much, but would I be in favor of dropping the 4K resolution down a bit and having the higher refresh rate? Having played with the S20 Ultra, I can say I would prefer that trade-off. Now, let's get into the camera tech and let's kind of work our way up here, starting from the bottom, because the selfie camera was disappointing. It just wasn't really working very well for us. I'm not a selfie person at all, really under any circumstances. But fortunately, our studio manager, Tati, had a little go for us on the selfie camera. I'm gonna put the results up on the screen here. If we move the Sony one over to the left, you will see some of the competition on the right. We'll just keep changing through them here. Let me know what you think. I mean, the Pixel, I just love the selfie camera on the Pixel. It's just great, isn't it? But let me know your thoughts and which looks kind of most natural or most impressive. There's going to be a whole separate photography special on this phone. So we're going to get into more detail, but this should keep us going in the meantime. Over on the back, things really do get interesting. Of course, we've got the Zeiss branding, that beautiful lens coating to keep everything looking smooth. 12 megapixels across the board, time of flight sensor. I mean, this is impressive looking stuff. The hardware is fantastic. Absolutely no problem with the hardware at all. And I like the decision to go with 12 megapixels instead of banging it up to 108 and getting crazy there. But again, let's put some results on the screen so you can just go through them with us here. I feel like, these are all auto mode by the way, the HUAWEI is impressive, everything's impressive, the iPhone 11 is very good as well. Where the Sony struggles is when we get into high contrast scenarios. I mean, that's when it really, you can tell it's kind of beginning to lose the plot at that point. Now, if you get into pro mode, you can deal with that. And it's actually a lot of fun. But here's the thing, this whole shtick about this is for professionals and all the rest of it, I mean, that's a great story. And I think a professional photographer is going to get a kick out of using this. But a professional photographer is going to have a fully pro camera setup, and they're probably not going to be trying to use their phone as they would be using their Sony, A7 DSLR, whatever their piece of kit is. So that one for me is a little bit strange. It is a little bit of a worry that you can go out with a Pixel and get an instant shot, which is virtually as good as this. Whereas to compete, you do need a tripod, you do need to get into pro mode with this thing. So who's going to actually enjoy the photography aspect of this phone? I would say, number one, it has to be a Sony fan, because this is very, very Sony in terms of the user experience when you get into pro mode. The other thing, of course, is it's going to have to be someone who is willing, more than willing, someone who really wants to use pro mode a lot of the time. And I say that because the auto mode just doesn't quite cut it. It could do with a future software update, but at the moment it's not quite there. It's very close, but not quite there. Now, one thing I find with a lot of tech reviews is they move so fast onto the next phone that there's no time to really kind of deal with the whole, is this the right phone for me? Should I buy it? Am I crazy to buy this? Well, let's take a proper look at whether or not you should buy this phone. I think if you are a big Sony fan, I mean a really big Sony fan, Sony knew that this was going to be a niche product. They're not trying to take on the iPhone here. They're trying to do something which is a celebration of what Sony does best. And this is for the fans. If you are a Sony fan, you're going to get a huge kick out of using it. If you want to use the pro mode and use it a lot, again, you'll get a huge kick out of that. In terms of living with the phone day to day, because it's basically stock Android with just a little sprinkling of Sony magic, you're going to love that as well. I think you'll enjoy the form factor, the resolution. It's super powerful. It's a great phone, but it's $1,200. Now, if you get this phone with the free earphones that I can never remember the name of, let's put that on the screen somewhere, then it makes a lot more sense. However, if you don't and you're paying a full $1,200 up front, yeah, that's when you need to be a Sony fan. Compared with the iPhone 11 Pro Max even, it can be cheaper, although you won't get the same storage. This, don't forget, is 256 gigs of storage, and you can put in a terabyte SD card as well. So I mean, there is that, let's not forget. But an iPhone will hold its value better and will get longer software support. I think up to 5 years is about right with an iPhone. This, you're probably going to get 2 OS updates and maybe up to 3 years if you're lucky in terms of the monthly security patches. Probably won't be monthly though. I was looking over on Xperia blog and I noticed that a lot of people were saying that the security patches are kind of patchy. So yeah, there is that. I think the biggest thing that's been missed here across the board, it seems, is that what you're getting with this phone is a really, really impressive big phone experience, but without the drawbacks that we normally get with big phones. It isn't heavy, despite the fact that it's got that huge screen and a huge 4,000 milliamp hour battery, which easily gets me through every single day with almost 30% left easily. So putting all of that together then, just to kind of bring it into a conclusion, would I spend $1,200, £1,100 on this phone? Do you know what? I would. It's $1,200. That is steep. It's really steep. It makes a lot more sense with the earphones. By the way, those deals do come back occasionally. Make sure you follow us on social media, because when we see that deal, we'll give you a heads up. That makes a lot more sense. I'm a big advocate of getting a separate SIM plan, and if you can, and getting the handset separately, because that way you can chop out the handset whenever you want. Hey, so thank you so much for joining me up here on a rooftop in Latin America for our first ever rooftop review. I know this is mental, obviously, but I hope that doesn't stop you from wanting to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, and be ready for the next one, because the next one is all about the Galaxy S20 Ultra. I want to thank Vodafone for shipping that out to me here. I'm very grateful for that. I've got that for a while, so let's do a review on that. And then we're going to compare that to the Xperia 1 Mark II and basically everything else that we had in the studio before COVID hit. And we're going to have some fun. It isn't just where I am now, we're going to be on other rooftops in other parts of the world. So this could be really good fun. We're going to meet some influencers, we're going to take some pictures, street photography, let's just see the world. I mean, COVID's got a lot of people down. I think it's time we had some fun. Hopefully, we'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.